Hello sports fans, it's me, Sportsman Z, and I am here with Game 4 of the American League Championship Series between the 1978 Boston Red Sox and the 1978 Kansas City Royals. We are in Kansas City for this one. The series is right now it's 2-1 Kansas City. So if Kansas City wins today, they will be the American League champions, and they will await the winner of the Los Angeles-Philadelphia series. The pitchers today for the visiting Boston Red Sox will be Mike Torres. If you remember, he pitched the one-game playoff against the New York Yankees, because in real life he actually did, and I was going by what actually the actual lineups and starting pitchers and everything for that game. And the starting pitcher for the Kansas City Royals will be Larry Gura. And Larry Gura started game 1 of this series, and I don't remember if he got the loss or not, but I do remember that Kansas City lost game 1. So we'll see what happens. But let's get into it. Let's get this party started with Rick Burleson. The lineups will be the same as they've always been. And actually, in an oddity, if you recall, whenever I would do like just a random game between two teams, there was always an injury in the game. Always. Now I'm doing an American League Championship Series where injuries would be critical, and for some reason there hasn't been an injury yet in either series. So anyway, Rick Burleson leading off. He gets a 6-7 off of Gura, which is a fly ball center field. So fly out to 8. That brings up Jerry Remy. Jerry Remy gets a 4-6, which is a double 1-6 off Gura's card. And he does get a double. So Jerry Remy doubles. And that's a hit allowed by Gura. That brings up Jim Rice, the DH today. And he gets a 6-4, which is a ground ball third base X on Gura's card. The third baseman is George Brett, and he's a 2. That's a 4-2. That's probably going to advance the runner to second with an out, and it does. Or to third with an out, excuse me. So there are now 2 outs, and that was a 5-3. And that brings up Yaz. And Yaz gets a 5-11, which is a fly ball to the right fielder. The right fielder for the Royals is Al Cowens, and he's a 2. So there it is. And that's a 17. That's probably going to be a fly out. And it is. So Yaz flies out to Cowens, and no runs in the first for Boston. And that brings up Willie Wilson for the Kansas City Royals. And he gets a 5-8 off of Torres's card, which is the second baseman. The second baseman is Remy. He's a 2. That's an 11, probably an out. And it is. So 4-3. And Amos Otis comes up, and he gets a 4-6. And a 4-6 is a single 1-17 off Torres's card. And it is a single. So Amos Otis gets the first hit for the Royals. And George Brett comes up right behind him. He gets a 4-6, which is a single 1-17, as we've just established. And he also gets a single from it. Moving Otis to second. Second hit allowed by Torres, who did pitch well in that one-game playoff. And then Hal McRae comes up, and he gets a 2-7, which is a single 1-12. And that is a single. The dice got held up there in the gap between the scorecard and the board, but that's how the roll went, so we're going to go with it. And it's the third straight hit given up by Torres. Bases loaded now, no, with only one out. And who is up? Daryl Porter. Daryl Porter is up with the bases loaded, and he gets a 2-8, which is a line out to second base right between two hits. I knew that was his column, but he is out. And Al Collins is up, and he gets a 6-10, which is a fly ball to center. The center fielder is Freddie Lynn, and he's a 1, and that's a 16. That's probably going to be an out, and it is. So, despite loading the bases, they do come away with nothing, and the score is still tied at 0-0. And that brings up Carlton Fisk to lead off the second inning of work here for these two teams. Boston facing elimination, Kansas City hoping to end it right now. And Carlton Fisk, 4-3. On Gura's card is a pitcher. He's a pitcher 2 defensively. That is a 13. That may be something. It is a 2-base error by Larry Gura. So Carlton Fisk on by a 2-base E1. And that would, we'll put that in his E column down there, make the special one for him. And Freddie Lynn is up with a runner at second and no out. And he gets a 6-11 off of Gura's card, and that's a ground ball pitcher B. So that's one away, and the runner will hold. 1-3. And that brings up Dwight Dewey Evans, and he gets a 1-8, which is a fly ball left field B, and that's 2 away. Fly out to 8. And that brings up Butch Hobson with a ground ball second base C. So, despite a leadoff error by Gura that looked like it could be damaging, Boston still comes away with nothing. And now we go to the bottom of the second, and Frank White, one of my favorite players of all time, is leading off. He gets a 6-4, which is a line out to the shortstop, but just missed a home run possibility. Line out to 6. Clint Hurdle steps in. Clint Hurdle gets a 4-3, which is a ground ball first base C. So 3-1, we'll just say. And then Freddie Patek gets a 5-4, which is a catcher card. And that's Fisk, and he's a 1. And that's a 3. And 3-1 is a pass ball followed by pop out. So pop out to the catcher 2. And no runs for Kansas City in the second. And we go to the top of the third. Top of the third, George Scott. He gets a 3-7, which is a single 1-9. And that is a single. So George Scott leads the third off with a hit off of Gura. Only the second hit of the game for the Red Sox. And that brings up Rick Burleson. Rick Burleson with a 3-9 ground ball shortstop A. So he gets a 6. He bounces into a 6-4-3 double play, and there's 2 outs. And that brings up Jerry Remy, and he gets a 6-7, which is a walk. Or no, 6-7 on Gura is a fly ball center field. So fly out to 8. Boston goes down harmlessly in the third. And we go to the bottom of the third, with Kansas City coming up with Willie Wilson, the top of the order. And he gets a 1-8, which is a line out to shortstop. Line out to 6. When the game is clean like this, really clean, it's easier to concentrate, I find. Amos Otis, 6-5, is a home run 1-9 double. And that'll be a double. So Amos Otis with a 1-out double. off of Torres. And George Brett is up, and he gets a 4-8, which is a walk. Or no, wait, 4-8 is a single. That's a single. And let's see. George Brett with the single. Otis is the base runner. He's a 1-17. That would go to left field. The left fielder's arm. Well, the left fielder is Yaz. And Yaz has a -2 arm, so it's a 1-15 going home. Kansas City's playing with house money here, so they will send him. And he does barely make it. So that's going to be a single for Brett and an RBI. And let's see. Yeah. And the run scores, and Kansas City has a 1-0 lead here with Hal McRae up, and he gets a 1-8, which is a line out to second base, 2 away. Line out to 4, and Darryl Porter is 6'3". Pitcher is a 2 defensively. 20-2 is probably an out. Nope, it's a roll again. And 19 is a roll again. And 12 is going to be something, a 1-base error. So Mike Torres makes his own error. And so he's on by an error, E1. And then that brings up Al Collins with 2 runners on and 2 out. And he gets a 6-3, which is a ground ball to the pitcher. Let's see if he makes another error. That's an 18, probably an out. I want to say on that one. No, that's roll again too. And that's 13. That's going to sting. That's going to sting a little. Oh no, wait a minute. 18, sorry. 18 was an out. So Torres does make the play. And Kansas City only gets 1 run there. So let's see. And he's out 1-3. And Frank White again will lead off the 4th inning when Kansas City comes up. But they got a 1-0 lead here in an elimination game. This has got to be concerning for Boston. You got Jim Rice. Jim Rice is up, and he gets a 1-3, which is a walk. Jim Rice walks, and then that brings up, and that's a walk for Gura's record. Yastrzemski, and Yastrzemski is a 1-11 line out to second base. Line out to 4. 1 away. Carlton Fisk is a 3-8, which is a double 1-2, or a single, and that's going to be a single double asterisk, which sends Rice to third. Another hit for Gura, and that brings up Freddie Lynn. Freddie Lynn, 5'11", right field X. Collins is a 2. That's a 5. 5-2 on the outfield is an out. 4 runners hold. So 2 away. Fred Lynn fly out to 9. And that brings up Dwight Dewey Evans. Runners at the corners, 2 away. Key situation, 4-6. And he rips a double 1-6 single double asterisk. And that's going to be a single double asterisk, which knocks in the tying run in Jim Rice. And an RBI for him. And hitting an earned run on Gura's record. And that brings up Butch Hobson. Butch Hobson gets a 5'11", which is a right field X. That's Collins. He's a 2. 2-2 on the outfield, probably an out, and it is. So Hobson flies out to 9, but Boston ties the game in the 4th inning. And that will bring up Frank White, as we said, leading off the 4th, as he has led off the last 2 of the last 4 innings. 6-8 is a strikeout on Torres's card, and that's the first strikeout for Torres of the game. Clint Hurdle gets a 1-5, which is a fly ball center field, so he flies out to 8. And then Freddie Patek gets a 6-11, which is a ground ball pitcher B. So he bounces out 1-3, and Kansas City goes 1-2-3 in the 4th. We go to the top of the 5th, and that will mean that in the 5th inning, Willie Wilson will lead off for the 3rd time in the game. So who says that the leadoff hitter doesn't necessarily lead off every inning? I mean, he's going to have led off in 3 of the first 5. So, but anyway, right now Boston is up, so let's concentrate on that with George Scott, who actually led off an inning himself in the 3rd and now is leading off again in the 5th, batting against Gura. He gets 4-7, which is a single 1-15, and he got a hit the last time too, and he gets a hit this time. So he's 2 for 2 with 2 singles. Gura can't solve George Scott, apparently. Rick Burleson's up, and he gets a 1-9, which is a fly ball center field B, 1 away. Fly out to center. Brings up Jerry Remy. Jerry Remy gets a 2-8, which is a single with 1 asterisk. So runners have to hold. The runner has to hold. But he does go to second, and Gura is facing a situation where there's 1 out and runners at first and second. And Jim Rice is up, and he gets a 2-7, which is a fly ball to left field. So he flies out to 7. And now there's 2 away. Runners at first and second for Kansas City. Yaz up, or for Boston, and Yaz up, and he hits a ground ball pitcher. So he grounds out to the pitcher, 1-3, and Boston gets no runs in the 5th. And here we go with Willie Wilson leading off his 3rd inning of the game in the first 5. And he gets a 2-8, which is a strikeout. And a K for Torres. So Torres and Gura pitching really well here. Amos Otis up, 6-9, is a shortstop X, and the shortstop is Burleson, and he's a 1, which really is kind of crazy, but shortstop 1, 8 and 1 is an out, 2 away. Amos Otis, so yeah, 6-3. And then that brings up George Brett. And George Brett gets a 1-9, which is a triple 1-14. Who knew Brett had that kind of speed? So it is a triple for George Brett. And a hit given up by Torres. And now Torres has got to get this out, or at least it can't be a base hit, with Hal McRae up. And Hal McRae gets a 4-12, which is a pop out to 3rd base. Pop out to 5. Kansas City gets no runs despite the fact that they ended up stranding Brett at 3rd base. And now we have Fisk leading off in the 6th for Boston. Top of the 6th. 4-7 is a single 1-15 off Gura's card. And he does get a single out of it. Gura giving up his 7th hit. He's bending but not breaking here. Fred Lynn is up. 6-7 is a fly ball center field, 1 away. That brings up Dwight Dewey Evans, and he gets a 1-3, which is a ground ball 3rd base A. So he goes 5-4-3, and they're out of the inning. And we go to the bottom of the 6th. Kansas City will be sending up Daryl Porter, Al Cowens, and Frank White to bat against Torres. 5-9 is a ground ball second base for Porter. So 4-3, one away. Al Cowens is up. That's a 3-6, which is a single. So Al Cowens with a base hit off Torres. That's his 6th hit allowed. And Frank White is up 6-7, which is a walk. So Torres walks White, which forces Cowens to second and is the first walk of the game for Torres. Clint Hurdle gets a 3-6, which is a home run 1-4 or a double. That's a double, and it knocks in the go-ahead run for sure. And it's at least one RBI, which is Cowens. And Frank White is the runner at third right now, coming around. So let's see if Frank White is going to 1-15, and this would be the right fielder, the right fielder's arm, and the right fielder is Dwight Evans. I'm going to think probably they're not going to go on that. Dwight Evans with the -5, so they are going to hold White at third base because it would be a 1-10 and pretty much a 50% chance, and they don't need to risk that with one out and runners at second and third. So that brings up, and he had the walk, so he goes to, he's at third now. So Freddie Patek is up, and he gets a 6-6, which is a double 1-9, so that's going to knock in both runs right there. But it's a single. Still, he knocks in both runners. A single, 2 RBIs, scores him, base hit, 1, 2, and that is going to be it for Torres. They can't afford any more runs. So Torres only goes 5 2/3. No, just 5 1/3. They're going to bring in Bob Stanley to try to quell the uprising here. Where is my pen? Here it is. And that'll bring up Willie Wilson with a runner at first and only one out. And he gets a 4-4, which is a double off Stanley's card. So let's see here. Double for Willie Wilson, moves Patek to third. Hit allowed by Stanley. The runner on third is still Torres's, and Amos Otis is up, and he gets a 2-8, which is a double 1-7. That's going to knock in both of those runs, and it does with a double. So he gets 2 RBIs, scores him, hit allowed by Stanley. No, only one of those is an earned run for Stanley, and one of them is for him, and that goes, So that's the 5th run scored in this inning by Kansas City. And then that brings up George Brett. And he gets a 2-7. 2-7 is a pop out to first base. Pop out to 3. 2 away now. And that brings up Hal McRae. And he gets a 1-10, which is a triple 1-7 double. And that's going to be a double that scores another run. And that is Stanley's run. And that brings up Daryl Porter again. And he gets a 4-8, which is a single double asterisk, and scores another run. So let's see. Daryl Porter with a single and an RBI and a run scored there, and another hit allowed by Stanley, and an earned run, and another run comes in, and that's going to be it for Stanley. And Stanley only goes 1/3 of an inning. As Boston is facing elimination here, they really are in a lot of trouble. They can't even allow another run to score, and they're going to bring in Hassler. Hassler comes in, and Collins is up with a runner at first and 2 out. And he gets a 1-8, which is a single 1 asterisk, so runners stay. Or runner doesn't go to third. And that's a hit allowed by Hassler. And that brings up Frank White, and Frank White gets a 5-5, which is a ground ball shortstop, and the shortstop is a 1. And that's a 7. That's probably going to be an out that mercifully ends this inning. And it does. So White goes 6-3 on his second time up in the inning. But Kansas City bats around easy and scores 6 runs. And now it's a 7-1 lead going to the top of the 7th. And the Kansas City Royals will make a defensive change, and they will bring in Pete Lecoq to play first base for Clint Hurdle. Yes. Not that he's that much of an upgrade, but he is a little bit of an upgrade. So Pete Lecoq, first base 3. So we have Butch Hobson up against Gura, who right now seems to be a safe bet to go most, if not all, of the game. But we'll see. 6-5 is a fly ball right field C, so Hobson is out. Fly out to 9. Brings up George Scott. George Scott gets a 5-10, which is a ground ball shortstop. The shortstop is Freddie Patek, who's a 2. That's a 20 and a 2 at short. 20 and a 2 is an out 3. That's 2 away. And that brings up Rick Burleson. And he gets a 3-7, which is a strikeout. And there's a strikeout by Gura. And Boston gets no runs there. They really needed to try to chip away in that inning, because now they've only got 2 innings left to get 6 runs. Pete Lecoq will lead off. He came in defensively for Clint Hurdle, and he gets a 6-7, which is a single off Hassler's card. A base hit, and that brings up Freddie Patek. He gets a 3-7, which is a strikeout, 1 away. First strikeout for Hassler, and only the 3rd of the game for Boston as a whole. Willie Wilson up. He gets a 4-10, which is a ground ball second base C. Moves the runner to second, but now there's 2 outs. And then that brings up Amos Otis with a man at second and 2 away. And he gets a 1-8, which is a walk. So now there's 2 on. And 2 on and 2 out, and George Brett up, and he gets a 1-8, which is a home run 1-6 or a double, and that's going to be a double that scores a run. Kansas City will hold up the runner. They're not even going to entertain the idea. George Brett gets his second RBI of the game. Hassler gives up his first run. 2 out, and that brings up Hal McRae, and Hal McRae gets a 5-7, which is a ground ball second baseman. Second baseman is a 2, that's Jerry Remy, and that's going to be probably an out. And it is. But they do strike for another run, and so now it really, you have to believe that that's going to be really it. 4-3, he was out, and Porter will be up next inning, yes. And Jerry Remy will lead it off for Boston, looking to do a 7-run comeback. It seems unlikely, but 5-4 is a catcher card X, and the catcher is Darryl Porter, who is a 1. That's a 13. 13-1 is a foul out, and that's 1 away. Foul out to 2. Brings up Jim Rice. Jim Rice gets a 6-10, which is a center field X, and the center fielder is Amos Otis, who's a 2, and that's probably an out, and it is. Fly out to 8, and that brings up Carl Yastrzemski, and Yastrzemski gets a 5-4, which is a catcher again, and he is a 1, and that's a 1, and that's probably going to be a strikeout, and it is. So the Boston Red Sox get none in the 8th, and now they have to have at least a 7-run outburst in the 9th. At least. And that depends on whether Kansas City can add to the lead here with Darryl Porter up, and he gets a 6-11, which is a walk. And that brings up Al Cowens. Al Cowens gets a 3-8, triple 1 to 11. They could add to the lead right here, but they don't. That's a double. Yes, it's a double. Again, Kansas City doesn't really feel any need to send the guy, and now that brings up Frank White. He gets a 5-5 off Hassler, which is a ground ball to the shortstop, Remy. Remy gets rolls a 5. Second base is a 5, and 5 and a what? Is Remy a 2? Out 3? Well, it's really not an out 3, but out 3. Let's see. Runner on first is going to second. Other runners advance 1 base, so that knocked in a run, actually. Frank White, 4-3, but an RBI, an earned run for Hassler. The infield was not in, but really at this point, I think that's pointless. But anyway, they'll bring in the infield. But I mean, the game, it's not like I made a decision that's really going to hurt the Red Sox chances of winning this game. 2-9 is a ground ball, second base A++, so, and that actually knocks in another run because the infield was in. So, you know, they're danged if they do, and they're danged if they don't. Single with an RBI. And that's the second run. So, yeah. 5, 8. Yeah. All right. So, runner at first now, infield's back, but there's 1 out with Freddie Patek up, and he gets the 3-4, which is a pop out to second, 2 away. Pop out to 4. And that brings up Willie Wilson, and he gets a 4-7 off Hassler's card, which is a single. And that brings up Amos Otis, and he gets a 4-8, which is a single, and puts runners, the bases loaded again. And Hassler is going to come out. We have, let's see, 7th, 5 1/3, then 2/3. No, wait, 5 1/3, then 1/3. So a third here, 1 1/3. So Hassler's pitched 2, and will leave the game. And he will give way to Tom Bergmeyer, although at this point I think it's a moot point. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see. But George Brett is now up with runners at 2nd and 3rd and 2 away. And 6-11 on Bergmeyer is a fly ball left field X. The left fielder for the Red Sox is Yaz, and he's a 1. And that's a 3. And 3 and 1 is an out. So he flies out, George Brett does, to left to end the threat, but they get another 2 runs, and so now Kansas City is winning 10-1. Boston needs 9 runs right here off of Gura, who is going to go the distance so that they can preserve him for the World Series. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. Carlton Fisk is up. 4-8 is a walk. And the Boston fans are sitting there saying, here we go, here we go. But maybe not. So anyway, a walk by Gura. Fred Lynn gets a 2-5, which is a fly ball right field, right between 2 home run chances. Fly out to 9, 1 away. That brings up Dwight Dewey Evans. He gets a 6-7, which is a fly ball center field B. And that brings up Butch Hobson, and Butch Hobson gets a 4-2, which is a line out to first base, line out to 3, and that will be the game, folks. The loss goes to Torres easy, and the win easily goes to Gura, who was the only pitcher that pitched in this game. And what that means is that the Kansas City Royals, my friends, are going to the World Series for 1978. In this alternate universe, it will be the Kansas City Royals in the World Series to face either the Dodgers or the Phillies. And it would be really exciting, wouldn't it, if the Phillies actually come back and win that series and it ends up being Kansas City and the Phillies. But we'll see if that happens. But for right now, I'm signing off. The Sportsman Z, Bob Zolke, signing off from Kansas City, where the Royals will advance to the World Series. And thanks for watching.